San Francisco trades up to the 3rd overall pick, clearly with somebody in mind. They would have traded up to number 2 if they could, but the Jets didn't let them do it. And now they're coming to 3 to take either Lance or Fields or Mac Jones, I guess. A lot of people are saying that San Francisco could draft Mac Jones. Personally, if you ask me, I would have drafted Justin Fields. I might even draft Justin Fields over Zach Wilson because I just don't know what he is. We saw Justin Fields beat Trevor Lawrence in the college football playoff, but he also had some poor games as well. If I'm just going to listen to the experts who have contacts, Daniel Jeremiah being one of them, Mac Jones is going to be a San Francisco 49er, Ryan.
I mean, yeah, he is a presumptive favorite right now, but I honestly do think it's smoke. I'm not buying it. And I get why he is talked about there because he does fit the Shanahan system of the pocket quarterback. You know, we saw Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins have their best years in that system. So he does really fit there. But I think at 3, you have to go with an athlete. And I personally think Justin Fields is the guy at 3. You talked about, you know, he did out-duel Trevor Lawrence. He was hurt that game. He showed a ton of toughness. And when I was watching that game in real time, I think the Jets had already been locked into 2. I was prepared for him to be our quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years. But Zach Wilson shot up the draft boards. He's got a huge arm. He's got a ton of talent. I think he is a lock to go to the Jets, as you talked about. Lawrence, Wilson, I think we are safe to say there. But I do think the 49ers go Justin Fields. He's such a dynamic athlete, and I don't know how John Lynch could turn that down. 4.4 speed, huge arm. And if you do go Mac Jones and he just flat out isn't the athlete, doesn't have the skills of Trevor Lawrence, that's really going to hurt because we've seen before with the Niners, they can't be complacent. And I do give him a lot of credit for trading up. I've not been a Jimmy G fan throughout his tenure in San Francisco. I thought they've got the most out of him. And even then he collapsed in the 4th quarter of the Super Bowl. He can't stay healthy. So I do like the move, the aggressive move to trade up. We know they are getting a quarterback, but I would assume it'd be Justin Fields. I just think this Mac Jones is a lot of talk. I think it creates some interesting conversation with 4 for Atlanta because I don't think there's any chance they would draft Mac Jones. So maybe, you know, there's a trade scenario there with Atlanta. I think they're locked into Matt Ryan, but with 3, I am going to go Justin Fields to the 49ers. I think it's just a great match for his skill set. You know, even though he's not a typical pocket passer, he can be. And Shanahan's so creative. He'll find ways to get him on the ground. I'm not worried about that at all. But it is really interesting, Chris, to see all this Mac Jones hype. And I don't think he was ever a guy talked about as a top 3 in this draft until the Niners traded up. So maybe it is they're in love with him, but I don't see how you pass on the talent of Justin Fields right now.
I think that San Francisco made this move is because we are in a position right now to draft a quarterback by making this trade. There's no guarantee that next year we're going to be able to make a trade, right? There's no guarantee that Atlanta isn't like they didn't even have to make a trade to get into a position to draft a quarterback. Next year they might have to give up 2 first-round picks like San Francisco just did to draft their quarterback. So I do think that they're going to go with the 1 remaining because I really – I guess maybe they go either Fields or Lance. Would the 5th one then go to Detroit? Are they going to draft a quarterback with Jared Goff still on their team? There's a lot of interesting because the team we know isn't going to draft a quarterback is Cincinnati at 5, probably Miami at 6. Then you have Detroit at 7, and Carolina. We know Carolina's not going to do it at 8. They just traded for Sam Darnold. So now you're starting to fall that whoever that 5th quarterback is, whether it's Jones, Fields, or Lance, is going to start falling down that board. Now we're already into the territory of the Cowboys and the Giants. We know they're not going to pick one. The Eagles, they're not going to pick one. So now you just keep going and going and going. And that's where Bill Belichick just sits there and waits for the 5th one to fall to him. Because I think you're right, Kayla. I think that he's probably going to draft the 5th quarterback. But it's possible if you look at that board, that the 5th one is going to fall all the way to them because Washington is below them too. And I don't know. I personally could see Mac Jones or Trey Lance going to New England at the 15th pick.
So I think similar to what you said, Chris, Bill Belichick sitting at 15 here. The dominoes start falling. There's really no one you could see picking a quarterback. You said Detroit. I think they let Jared Goff ride out a year. I don't think he's the future, but they need a ton of help on the defensive side as well. So I see that happening. And then that leaves Mac Jones to the Patriots. The only other team I should mention is the Broncos. I would be a proponent in them drafting a QB. I don't think Drew Lock has shown enough, but he has a ton of talent. You know, you can give him a 3rd year. I wouldn't kill you. I know Vic Fangio is kind of on the hot seat here. definitely Pat Shurmur. So I would be aggressive if I was them, but I don't think they will be. So that does leave Mac Jones to the Patriots at 15. I think he's a great fit because he's a conservative quarterback. He's not going to be turning the ball over a ton. And I think that's something Bill Belichick really looks at. Cam Newton was obviously re-signed. That's an incentive-laden deal. 1 year flyer, give him another shot with a better offense. They added a ton of weapons this offseason. So I would like the Patriots to draft a guy at 15. I don't see Bill trading up for anyone. And the way that the dominoes fall in my kind of mock draft we're doing here is Mac Jones falling there. So that is kind of how I think the draft's going to play out. I do think there is going to be a team that trades into the top 7-ish to get a quarterback. I think it's Washington personally, and that's kind of how I see the draft unfolding.
Yeah, I don't know that I see the 5th quarterback dropping all the way to the Patriots. I feel like the Broncos might take one. What are they at 9? I think that the Broncos could take one at 9 and take the 5th one there, and then there might not be any more for the Patriots to have. So in my mock draft, I could see Mac Jones going down to the Broncos. And I don't know that necessarily because everybody has Mac Jones going towards the 49ers. Like all of the experts say that is what's going to happen. But I don't know. I feel like he has kind of average athleticism. I think that to pick him over Justin Fields in the top 3 would be kind of crazy to me. I think that would be surprising. I wouldn't expect that whatsoever. And especially with Trey Lance, because of the way his season shook out, it's hard to say how good he's going to be. So he could also be the 5th quarterback. He might drop down too, because people didn't really get to see a lot of what he did this past season. And so that unknown factor, that does he have the experience and can he transfer to the NFL, I think is going to be really tricky. And so it's going to have to be an aggressive and courageous coach who wants to take him on and really mold him and work with him to be their quarterback.
Yeah, I think that this is all interesting. Mac Jones to San Francisco looks more and more realistic when it's interesting because pre the trade, right, nobody had him going 12 to San Francisco, which I think is weird, right? It was like, oh, maybe he could fall to the Patriots. Maybe he can go all the way down to the later part of the first round and New Orleans takes him. Nobody had him going 12 to San Francisco. And all of a sudden they trade up to 3, and that's the guy they're going to take him, though they could have gotten him at 12. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We talk about Mac Jones going to the Patriots. Maybe the reason I don't see the Patriots trading up is because they can go get their guy Garoppolo for less, and they also just signed Cam Newton. But it's going to take much less to get Garoppolo away from San Francisco than it is to get the 4 or the 5 away from those teams, Atlanta and Cincinnati. So to me, it's either going to be Mac Jones at 15 or Garoppolo for a 2nd round pick, maybe some more, to New England for that, because I still don't believe in Cam Newton. I don't think Belichick does either. I think he's only signed there because he didn't want to go into the draft as the desperate guy. What do you think, Kayla?
I don't know. I don't know. So I think I see your point in that if they could have gotten Mac Jones at 12, why would you trade up at 3? I think that makes a lot of sense. And so I do understand that for the 49ers, it's so aggressive to have the number 3 pick, and then you're going to go with Mac Jones. I don't know. I feel like that's a little disappointing. But I don't know. I think that the Patriots have not shown that they're that interested in Garoppolo. They haven't made any moves to me that have said that they want to pursue that and that they want to go for him. And so I'm a little hesitant to say that they will. I think that, yeah, they definitely could get less for him instead of working their way up the trade, but they might get they might get a better quarterback if they worked up the trade. So I don't know. I'm hesitant to say that Bill Belichick is gunning for Jimmy Garoppolo and that he really wants him. I haven't seen anything that really shows me that yet.
All right, I want to address something that both you guys said, criticizing the Niners. I am not the biggest Mac Jones guy, but if you have the potential, if you are in love with Mac Jones and you're the Niners and you have a chance to go up and get him, you do it. The value of a franchise quarterback is much more than the 2 first-rounders they gave up. Why risk sitting at 12 and having your guy taken?
Because nobody was going to take him. Everybody had their
You never know how the draft's going to turn out. What if Bill Belichick sits there?
Talked about Mac Jones before the 49ers traded up.
Mac Jones was an afterthought until they traded up.
But if guys are quiet in the draft, you don't know what's going to happen. What if Bill calls the Giants at 11 and try to swoop in and take him from the Niners? If you are in love with a quarterback, you have to trade up and get him. And if you're sitting for him at 12, what does that say about you have to be aggressive in this league because
You
it's
think
not
they're in
worth
love
missing
with
out
Mac
on.
Jones?
No, but I'm saying if they are, I think it's a move you have to make because the risk is so prevalent because if you have a guy that you identify as the future, you go up and get him every day of the week. You worry about the first round picks later. When you evaluate him and he is your future, you go get him. So that's what I think on that. I love the aggressive move from them because it was clear Jimmy G wasn't going to work out long term there. And you guys talked about him with the Patriots. I think that's something that we're always going to talk about wherever Jimmy G goes is, can he go back to the Patriots? Can he go back? And I do think that'd be an awesome fit. Obviously, he knows that system. Bill knows him very well. And we'll see what he does there. But I just think, with the contract and the guys in the draft, it is a very, heavy quarterback draft, right? Next year, we're not going to be talking about 5 guys. We're talking about maybe 2 guys. So if Bill Belichick likes Mac Jones, or if he falls, or one of these other guys, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, I would take him. I wouldn't go with a Jimmy Garoppolo who can't stay on the field. It's that simple. And yeah, that's kind of where I see it. I don't criticize the Niners at all. Just get back to that. I love the aggressiveness from the organization because you don't want to be complacent here and sit at 12 and hope the guy falls to you. Even if no one's talking about him, you don't know what's going to happen. Someone could trade, someone could call, get on the phone, and then you're lost. So I love the move to move up to 3. And I don't think it's going to be Mac Jones. Let me make that clear. I do think that is smoke. But if it is, and that's the guy they evaluated, we'll see what happens. But I give them credit for at least being aggressive and going out and getting him.
Okay, wait. I just want to say one thing. I think that going for number 3 and being aggressive for the 49ers is a good move if you pick somebody like Justin Fields. And so I think that if you pick somebody like Mac Jones, then it was an unnecessary move. That's all I'm saying.
It will only one way to find out, and that's in 18 days when the first round of the draft begins.